I, 58 female, am having an argument, and my niece, 28 female, offered me to put it on Reddit. For background, my 28 male son, James, was cheated on by his girlfriend with his brother, Jack, 25 male, when he was 21. James's ex-girlfriend ended up getting pregnant by Jack and had triplets. Although Jack was the bio father, the children were born shortly after the relationship ended, so I feel like James should play a fatherly role. But he laughed in my face when I suggested this, and Jack lives with me and is now struggling really badly taking care of 3 children. Jack has to work day and night, 6 out of 7 days of the week, with minimum wage. James is pretty wealthy, as he went to college and owns a business, but he refuses to financially help Jack in any way. James is now in a new relationship with his fiancée, and his wedding is happening in 4 weeks. The thing is that he didn't invite Jack. Jack's life is upside down, and he would be a lot happier if he knew his brother forgave him. I told James to help Jack with the kids and invite him to the wedding, or else I would not come. He lashed out at me and said he will stop paying part of my rent. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I don't think I'm wrong, because my niece agrees with me that family should help family. But I guess everybody has their own opinions, and I think that for all I did for my children, I should get a say in their lives. After all, I was the one who birthed them and took care of them. Really? You're the a-hole. Your son was cheated on involving his brother, and you think he owes his nephews and nieces financial and emotional support? Where is the emotional support for your son who was literally ducked over by his brother? You're the a-hole. Is this real? Your son Jack is a huge a-hole. James must be thanking his lucky stars that he didn't have kids with his lying, cheating ex-girlfriend. He is now happy and starting a new life with his new wife. You would be the a-hole if you didn't go to his wedding. And how dare you manipulate him to invite his deadbeat brother? And asking James to pay for Jack and his ex's kids? Hell no. Stop enabling Jack's piss-poor behavior. Be happy for James. I hope James stops paying your rent. You don't deserve his charity. You're the a-hole. Stay out of it. This is between them, and Jack betrayed his brother. James isn't obligated to forgive ever, but especially if there was no real apology or remorse. There's probably regret, but that's Jack's problem, not James's. I have 2 sons, Robert and James, who are fraternal twins. Robert is gifted. He has an IQ in the top percentages of the population. He tested as gifted as soon as he started school. For a year, we tried the gifted program at the public school, but it wasn't enough for Robert, and he was ahead of the other and older children. We always thought he was advanced from his age. We found a school in another state for kids like Robert, and we moved there so Robert could attend. His abilities were met there, but he was still at the top of his entire school. We were fortunate to find similar schools for Robert for both junior high and high school. His elementary school often fed into the junior high, and then the junior high to the high school. It involved more moves, but me and my husband wanted to give Robert the best schools for his abilities. Robert finished high school early and was in AP classes. Robert had trouble in college. We think it was him being younger than the other students, who were all adults past age 18. He took a short leave of absence and then returned when he was closer in age to the other kids. In the meantime, he did more schooling and studying and joined Mensa. Robert had the highest IQ in his Mensa chapter. Robert had trouble at college. He wasn't failing by a long shot, but he also wasn't at the top of his classes, which we didn't understand at an Ivy school. He had some issues with the teachers and other students in his classes, so ultimately, we decided Robert should leave for the time being. My husband helped Robert get a job, but he wasn't happy there. Robert wasn't meant for that job with his abilities and his IQ, and he eventually went back to college. He went to another Ivy and did well. He struggled with not being a top student. However, he still had good grades, and now Robert has a BS and a master's. He isn't sure if he wants to get a PhD now, but he's young and has time to decide. This brings me to my question. My son James has a job at NASA. I didn't know NASA hired people without a college degree or schooling after high school, but I learned they do because James has worked there for years. James joined the Army after high school because college wasn't in the cards for him, like it was for Robert. His job in the Army didn't require any college or education, and he didn't go to college when he left the Army. It was hard on Robert to see James get a job at one of the places he's always wanted to work. Me and my husband asked James if he could pass on Robert's resume and help him with getting hired at NASA, but James won't do it. He won't even talk about it now. You would think he would be proud of his brother, and it would raise his status at NASA to have his brother there. But James won't budge, and he 100% really called my husband an a-hole for even asking. I stopped to consider James might feel envious if his gifted brother has a job at the same place. But in my mind, James should still help because it's what family does for each other. You're the a-hole. First, because you clearly favor Robert over James. 2, because it is absolutely reasonable for James to want boundaries between his personal and professional life, especially since it seems like Robert struggles with professional environments like colleges and jobs. You're the a-hole. Look at your post. You primarily mention Robert. Your family moved multiple times for his education. Maybe James didn't feel like he was any priority to you with all these moves. You don't say that you're proud of James. You contacted him to help his brother out. Maybe he's sick and tired of feeling like the odd one out. You need to take a hard look and see how you've treated both boys. Oh my God, you're the a-hole times 1,000. So your son, who has basically been ignored and dragged along Robert's excellent adventure, doesn't want his current life to become more of the same, and you wonder why? Are you serious? How unaware can you actually be? I'm surprised he even speaks to any of you, given that you made your entire world about Robert. Did you even think about James, even once? If I were James, I'd move on and have nothing to do with any of you, just like you did his entire life so far. Huge a-hole. Huge. I have 2 sons, Isaiah, 22, and Daniel, 24. They had a great childhood together, save for the typical sibling disagreements, but nothing out of the ordinary. They grew up in a big family with loving grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins on both sides. However, as they entered their teenage years, they started resenting each other for outside reasons, because there was no issue at home. Daniel was seeing a young lady when he was 20. It was his high school sweetheart even after school, that he planned to get engaged to, but it never happened because Isaiah lied to her about Daniel stealing from her parents, and she and her parents believed him. Turned out, Isaiah was the one who stole jewelry from Daniel's ex-girlfriend's parents' house and pinned it on Daniel. As a result, her parents filed a police report, and Daniel suffered from the lie Isaiah told to get back at him for selling his bike that originally belonged to Daniel. They were both legally adults when this happened, and we were told to stay out of their conflict, but we couldn't help but get caught up in the middle. Eventually, the boys stopped seeing or talking to each other. Daniel lives in a rental apartment while Isaiah is still in college. Both boys are in contact with me and the family. Daniel is getting married this month. He sent me, his dad, and everyone else in the family an invitation, except for Isaiah. I called Daniel to ask since I assumed he probably didn't send Isaiah an invitation, but expected him to accompany me and my husband. He told me no, he intended not to invite his brother because he doesn't want him at his wedding. I felt heavy, because Isaiah already apologized and sought forgiveness and gave Daniel time and space to reconcile, but Daniel kept ignoring him, saying he wanted nothing to do with him. I explained how I felt he was being too harsh on his brother, and he told me to not pressure him about it and respect his decision. I didn't pressure him, but informed him that since Isaiah isn't invited, then I'm not coming to the wedding. Daniel threw a fit about how I was trying to corner him into inviting Isaiah, but I replied that I wasn't. I wasn't trying to pressure him or trying to change his mind. I was just letting him know. He lashed out, calling me unbelievable for making his wedding about Isaiah and not respecting his wishes. He added that I was selfish for putting Isaiah's feelings over his, and on his wedding no less. We argued. Then he hung up, after telling me if I didn't attend, then he'll never speak to me again. We haven't talked since then, and my husband agrees that Daniel is the one complicating things and not being graceful towards his brother, who wants to share his happy day with him. So one son tried to ruin the other son's life with multiple lies, and you were pissed he wasn't invited to a wedding. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Isaiah is not owed and does not deserve Daniel's forgiveness. Neither do you for continually trying to pretend like what Daniel did was excusable. If you don't go to that wedding, you will never know your grandkids. I dearly hope the family Daniel is marrying into are good people, because you are not. Oh yeah, you're an a-hole in this. Your husband is an a-hole too in this also. Mostly because you're siding with the brother who quite literally committed a crime, and used Danny as a scapegoat. I'd cut ties with him as well. So, yes, you're a nice big ol' a-hole, and you probably ruined your relationship with your son. At least you have a criminal in your corner. Congrats. I have 2 daughters, Ashley, 27, and Alyssa, 24. Ashley and Alyssa have never gotten along. Alyssa has a very strong personality and demands respect. If she feels that she's not being respected, she will yell at you. Ashley has always hated that and has been telling me and my husband to punish her for yelling at her, cursing at her, and rolling her eyes at her. My husband always agreed, but that's just how she is. I don't think she can help it, so I've tried not to punish her any more than just yelling at her. Ashley's always had a problem with that and started asking to stay with my mother-in-law on weekends when she was around 12. My husband always said she could stay with him, so she was never with us when she wasn't in school. My mother-in-law thinks family is very important, so I assumed she'd push Ashley to have a relationship with Alyssa, but she actually supported Ashley avoiding Alyssa at all costs. Ashley moved out at 18 and cut contact with me and Alyssa, and had very little contact with my husband. Then, 2 years ago, I was helping my mother-in-law with her iPad, and I saw pictures from Ashley's wedding. My kid got married, and nobody thought to tell me. Then I kept scrolling and saw pictures of her daughter. Again, nobody thought to tell me that I have a grandchild. I decided to reach out to Ashley after that, and we've had very little contact since then. I invited her over for dinner last week. This was going to be the first time I've seen her since she was 18. She came over and saw Alyssa, started screaming at me and left. She called me later and started yelling at me for inviting that bee when she was told that she wouldn't be there. I told her Alyssa is her sister, and she has to learn to get along with her. Then I said she's too old to be throwing these tantrums. She started crying, hung up on me, and hasn't spoken to me or answered my text since. Am I the a-hole for saying that to Ashley? You're the a-hole. You let one daughter push the other one around to the extent that you haven't seen her in 9 years. She thought you reached out to make amends, but I'm guessing you're so self-absorbed you didn't realize you ought to. The fact that no one told you about the wedding or the baby suggests there's an awful lot to this story you're not sharing here. So you're willing to call Ashley's behavior a childish tantrum, but whenever Alyssa behaves the same, it's just the way she is. You're the a-hole. The question OP should be asking herself, isn't she too old for enabling a 24-year-old brat? Dollars to donuts that the younger sister is the mini-me that she always wanted. Her post just screams narcissism, as it screams me, me, me. She has a golden child and a scapegoat. She lacks self-reflection. I mean, if your daughter more or less moved out at 12 and had many milestones without her, you would think she would start to question where OP failed. Nope. She goes into attacking and glossing over Ashley's feelings. She is a massive a-hole. My ex-boyfriend's parents own a restaurant that is very close to our school. A lot of people from our school go there after school. After we broke up, I stopped going to his parents' restaurant because it was awkward. My friends didn't want to go there without me, so we all started going to this pizza place a few streets over. After a while, the pizza place started offering a student discount meal, so we started going more often and bringing other friends too. We sort of became regulars at this new place, and one day we're talking to the people that work there about the old place we used to go to and how a lot of people from our school usually go to that restaurant because it's closer. Now we just found out that the other pizza place is going to be moving closer to our school. They offered to pay us if we handed out flyers that included their new location and their student discount to other students. I heard from the other people that my ex is really mad and says his parents think they are going to have to close their restaurant once the pizza place moves, and they can't compete with their prices. My ex is saying it's my fault, and that if I just kept going to his parents' restaurant like everyone else, no one would know about the pizza place, and the pizza place wouldn't be moving closer. He's also saying I used my popularity to get my friends to boycott his parents' restaurant, and that I was handing out flyers to get back at him. I didn't do it to get back at him, though. I did it because they paid me to. I also didn't make friends boycott his parents' restaurant. They just didn't want to go there without me. Not the a-hole. If their business was so heavily dependent on one person, then they weren't in a good spot to begin with. Not the a-hole. If the viability of a restaurant depends on a group of people grabbing a quick bite after school, it was not doing well financially. It's a free market. You may control a lot, But it's laughable to think losing a handful of customers is the reason a restaurant is on its last legs. You and your friends are not responsible for the management of the restaurant or the price of the food. Not the a-hole. If one person is the only thing keeping the balance book of an entire restaurant in the black, then the restaurant deserves to go under. The worst thing you can be accused of here is being a bellwether. It's very reasonable if you choose to go to another restaurant. I guess if he needed to keep the restaurant doing well, he should have been a better boyfriend. To give some backstory, my ex, 33 male, and I, 32 female, were together almost 11 years before we divorced just over 2 years ago. While it was an amicable divorce, I think it was hard on both of us. My current boyfriend and I started dating around 6 months after I divorced, and have been going steady ever since. Now, to my former mother-in-law. She was a wonderful person. She always treated me kindly, and we got along well. After my ex and I split, there wasn't any contact, but I don't fault her for focusing on her son rather than me. Just something that happens when families split. Unfortunately, she passed away due to some ongoing health issues recently. While I hadn't spoken to her in quite some time, it really affected me, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't cry. She was in my life for 11 years, and she's someone I will never forget. Her funeral was slated in my ex's hometown, and myself and my family cleared it with ex's family that we would be okay to attend. I was nervous about attending, and knew I was going to be a mess of emotions at the funeral. So I asked my boyfriend if he would attend to help support me, and he said he would. The day of the funeral arrived, and while I wasn't expecting anyone to be crazy nice, the response I got was a bit more mean. As soon as I arrived with my boyfriend, we got some glares from both my ex's family and some of my former friends that still keep in contact with my ex. We were in the main room waiting to go into the service with my family when a friend of my ex came over and bluntly told me that my boyfriend was not welcome and that he needed to leave. I was taken aback by this, but honestly, I didn't want to take away from the funeral and cause a scene. We left and the rest of my family stayed. I got a text later that night from another former friend telling me it was extremely rude to bring my boyfriend to the funeral. I didn't respond, but I guess I thought that after almost 2 years of being separated, it wouldn't be such a big deal. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. That's why you got so many glares. It really shouldn't need to be spelled out that this was about your ex and his family, his mother. I don't see that you had kids, so there's not even a complete reason for you to go. Ex's family is not family. Your ex-mother-in-law stopped talking to you and sided with her son. You could have easily sent flowers or cards to your ex-in-laws. If you wanted to go, you should have gone with those mutual friends, or even your own parent or sibling. A new boyfriend is not appropriate. If you had kids and this was their grandma, and you were remarried, that might be different, but none of that is the case. You're the a-hole. Why do you bring your boyfriend, who didn't know the deceased, but would be a slap in the face of anyone who resented you from the breakup? That's a very selfish and strange thing to do. You're not an a-hole for bringing him on the trip, but leave that guy who doesn't know anyone in the hotel would be the polite thing to do. Same with bringing your Uber driver. He didn't belong there. And if you needed his support to deal with the death of someone you haven't interacted with in years, and that need takes priority over the person's family, then you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole for bringing your new boyfriend to your ex's family, especially if they had never met him before. That was very rude. Your ex lost his mother. He was already grieving. Then you come to the funeral, which is okay, with your new boyfriend, which could be seen as flaunting him. Your boyfriend didn't need to be there and should have stayed home.